when you were coaching Japanese rugby overseas,
Yeah.
so we were talking a little bit about how, you only had a limited amount of language that you knew. So I think it was just a handful of those essential terms that would allow you to direct the players around the field during training. And I think they referred to you as Oni Donny, Devil Donny.
Yeah. Oni Donny, Devil Donny, yeah. Oni Donny San. They've always got good manners. Mr. Devil Donny, yeah.
And so the sheet of paper, so you didn't even know how to say hello or any greetings, good night, good morning.
You know what? I was such a intense bugger that when I got that contract and they said to me, look, we're gonna we're gonna give you a Japanese teacher, to come away and come around and teach you. And this lovely tiny Japanese woman turned up, and she's got her books and she sits down and, hajime mashita, which is the first time you're meeting. I can remember most of it. I haven't been back in Japan for a long time, but and she's sitting there looking at me, and I've just got this piece of paper and I just slid it across. And I just said, I just want to learn these, please. And she's like, oh, well, and I went, and she's looking at it, and it's got left, right, line up, no good, faster, more, 1 to 10, 1 to 10 minutes, 1 to 10, like half an hour, all these terms, seconds. I still remember them. Fun were the minutes, and byo was the seconds. The swear words, you had to, and she was like, what is this? But she taught me them. And what happened was I got to Japan and I did my first job. And I remember going out to meet the team. And you're right, I had to learn all the real subtleties and and I just hit them, man. I hit them on the field, and I just, one of the words I kept getting wrong was shita, and shita means down, but shita means tongue. If you split it, so I'd be yelling out shita, thinking it was shita, and so they'd be like, "What's he doing? Stick their tongue out, So, all right, now we're on." And so I had a lot of fun with that. But the thing was, because I could do all of the commands training in the gym and on the field, they thought I could speak Japanese, but obviously I couldn't. Yeah. And then, but what that did for me commercially was I suddenly became really in demand all around Japan.
Yep.
To go and work, because everyone was saying, "Oh, we've got this elite rugby union performance coach, and he can speak Japanese." We couldn't, but he could train them. So that's my conversation Japanese is still rubbish. So
you look at Eddie Jones as well. I think he went, and there was talk about him potentially coming back, I think, to coach Manly. I know it's Anthony Singe at the moment, but
Eddie was coaching Suntory when I was originally in the 90s. And Eddie was massive then, back in Japan. Like wherever he turned up, we'd go to these, like the university games were massive, like thousands of people, at a university match. And then the crowd would make a noise, and that's because they recognized Eddie had walked in. We're talking about the end of the 90s. And he'd walk in and they all knew him, But he was he was coaching Suntory, and Suntory were reigning supreme amongst the big company teams.
And so do you think, Donny, and you could probably pose this question to him as well, but in terms of going from Australia, speaking English, I know you originally grown up in New Zealand, and we'll talk a lot about your family history and your time in the Navy.
You're going to have to break this podcast into about 9 parts.
I think there's more than 9 parts. I think there's about 900. We could go for 9 hours, but I think one thing that wanted to ask you about was in terms of your communication. Initially when you were talking about that Ben Kennedy story and how he said he was basically said to you, "I'm fucked. I can't do anything this session." In that moment, reading his body language and making that split-second decision about whether you're going to let him come back in the morning, have a rest in the afternoon, going over to Japan where you only had limited vocabulary, and you had to direct these players around the field, obviously in a gym setting when you're doing, your key compound lifts and movements in the gym. Did you use a lot of priming demonstrations? Was it all about, body language, you learned to read players. Was this coming to develop?
Yeah, look, any of the players probably pre-Bulldogs. So I went to the Bulldogs in 2016 when Jeff and I came out I went to the Bulldogs 2016, and that's when I turned 50. And 2016, pre 2016, I led. So I did everything with the men. I run, train, whatever it was. So I was always a demonstration in there, working with them. After those years, a few things sort of happened along the way, and I really toned myself down, and even I switched to a more, dare I say it, but a little bit more intellectually sort of engaged with what was happening, and I stepped a bit deeper into the performance side of things as opposed to the coaching side of things. Yeah. But in Japan, I was very capable of stepping out. Yeah, this is what we're doing. Follow me, blah blah blah. And then with my language, reading them, looking at them, I've always been very. I like to think I've always been very good at reading people and really being able to connect. And they were skills that definitely I even learned in the military, and then as all through my years, I think that's been one of the reasons I've never had to really put a CV out. In fact, all of my professional work right up to Tennis Australia or anywhere has all been through word of mouth and people. So, leading by example. They say there's a bit of a coaching. I might get the stats wrong, but I'll try and do the math. But there's a bit of a coaching philosophy around communicating, and they say that we gain around 7% of something essence when someone's speaking. Then they say that increases to around 35, might be 38% by the way they say it. And then they say, and then I think, I don't know, whatever's left, 50 something, 55% is that's then how you actually act. So saying 7%, how you say it, up there 33, and then this or 32, and then this 58, 50, whatever I said was 55 or whatever is about how you act. And I really believe that. So I'm a big believer in, if I'm trying to get the best out of you, I don't have to be a saint, but whenever someone refers to me or you see me or someone talks about me, there should be traits of who you expect me to be or who I've led you to believe I am. You should hear those and see those. And that's what cements
reputation.
Reputation, and that's what makes it easier for you to buy into the things or trust what I say.
Mm-hmm.